Hi, hello, thank you for tuning in. This is my application assessment for week 1. So first I want to do a summary of what we learned. First we have Frederick Taylor, and my biggest takeaway from his readings is that he is the father of scientific management, and this directly points to time studies, which is timing tasks and coming up with the most efficient way for those tasks to be done in order to increase worker output and decrease the amount of time that it takes to create whatever it is that people are creating. Then we have Foyle, based in France, who placed the emphasis not on technical education, but on managerial education. And that in the sense that you could be a good leader and have low technical skills, but that didn't necessarily mean if you had good technical skills that you could be a good leader. I feel like he also really formed the basis for advancement into management, and he placed a lot of importance on planning. Finally, we have Weber, who's based in Germany, and I really liked the reading about Weber because what's known about Weber is he was all about bureaucracy. And obviously, what I liked about the reading is that it talks about how like we identify bureaucracy as like this hot topic term that no one likes. But that bureaucracy, what it really means is that it's a legal system for an organization to operate. And that way, like, discipline or rules are doled out not based off of like personal preference or like a despot, but that they're based on the rules that define the organization. So for my article, I chose The One Best Way, Frederick Winslow Taylor and the Enigma of Efficiency. And a quote that I found particularly interesting is, "Today, it is only a modest overstatement to say that we are all Taylorized, that from assembly line task timed to a fraction of a second, to lawyers recording their time by fractions of an hour, to standardized McDonald's hamburgers, to information operators constrained to grant only so many seconds per call." So from the readings, I had sort of assumed that all of the management theories that we were learning were sort of based off of Taylor, which is why I chose this article, which talks a lot about his contribution to management theory. And I just want to relate it back to a personal experience where at the start of the pandemic, I actually worked in a warehouse, and we participated in time studies to figure out how fast we could ship out boxes within a certain amount of time. I will say I hated it. It felt like I was being watched. And from this article, it appears that a lot of people actually didn't like Taylor. So even though I understand the importance, you have another non-fan over here, Taylor. I do want to add more, so I'm going to make a second video. So this is application assessment week 1, part 2. I wanted to point back to the article about Taylor and the enigma of efficiency for a second, particularly that quote I talked about in my last video, which was saying that we are all Taylorized. Like we've all had to adapt this theory of scientific management, particularly with time studies, into our own work. I would also say that I think this relates to Foyle and Weber in the sense that and I'll focus on Foyle first. So Foyle was all about like you can teach your employees to become good managers. So I would say if your employees have good time management skills, that's definitely something that people look for in managers. And then for Weber and bureaucracy, I guess like it's a little less tied to it, other than like with Weber, say someone wasn't meeting their standards of time, then you would have bureaucracy in place in order to address like this fault in the employee. Overall, I do want to have just like a personal sort of thought about the readings. It doesn't really relate to any of the articles, but I found them extremely illuminating. And the reason for that is I haven't really been in a managerial position in my work, but I've always been an employee. I haven't had to lead teams or anything like that. So I haven't thought about like what's the most productive way to get your employees to work together. And it's very interesting learning about that from sort of a theorist perspective, and like, oh, these are all of the theories that lead to having successful employees that are happy and they're getting their work done and they're efficient. So I think mostly I've just always really thought about this stuff in terms of like workers' rights and like how workers' rights are being infringed, rather than how people try to develop systems to make workers more effective. But at the end of the day, you're always going to get people who are that work for you, but they're doing the bare minimum, because I don't think any of us truly deep down, unless we love what we do, like there are aspects to our work where you're like, oh God, I don't know if I'm going to give 100% to this. Anyways, I'm interested to hear what other people found, what other articles that they put together, if they did any interviews or related back to a personal experience. Yeah, so can't wait for this next week.